The Xenoblade series is filled with bangers. No, not those bangers, Gordon. So call me Anthony Fantano as I take on the Herculean task of ranking my top 10 favourite Xenoblade tracks. So at number 10 we have the main theme of Xenoblade 1. The visual of the Monado planted into the ground is perhaps one of the most iconic title screens in gaming. Coupled with the slow passage of time in the background, it's truly something to behold. But what ascends that even further is the soothing melody of the main theme. Now I'm not a music guy, so I don't know any of the technical stuff, but what made this theme so special to me was hearing those first few notes again upon returning to the main menu after finishing the story. Once again seeing the Monado in the field, but this time with a whole new perspective, made for an unforgettable experience. It's a shame that as nice as the new title screen is in Definitive Edition, it just doesn't have quite the same impact as what came before. And at number 9 we have Yggdrasil from Xenoblade 2. Much like the main theme of Xenoblade 1, Yggdrasil joins my top 10 due to the context in which it plays. I'll never forget the excitement I felt upon reaching the base of the World Tree only to be swept off my feet with the bombshell that the World Tree wasn't a tree at all, but actually a space elevator. But I didn't think much of the music at first, figuring it would just be a choir throughout to symbolise the journey to meet the architect. But when that guitar kicked in, that was something special. If I'm being completely honest, although I think this is the perfect track to accompany the ascent of the World Tree, just listening to the song by itself doesn't have the same impact, which is why it comes in at number 9. But before we move on to number 8, I'd appreciate it if you quickly paused this video and told me some of your favourite Xenoblade tracks in the comments below. Alright, and at number 8, we have Carrying the Weight of Life from Xenoblade 3. Now in complete contrast to my last two entries, Weight of Life was brought into my top 10 due to external factors, as although the song is a banger, before this legendary event, it wasn't even close. What turned things around was that fated night of the Game Awards, when Pedro Eustache gave Xenoblade the love it deserved. Now I'm not going to rant about the Game Awards, as that has nothing to do with this video, but now, whenever I hear Weight of Life, I can't get the association with Pedro out of my mind. Picture it, Noah and the gang are out there fighting Mobius K, and somewhere on the battlefield, Pedro is going all out once more. I sincerely hope that a future Xenoblade game refers to this moment. Even if it is just a silly throwaway line from an NPC, I think it would be really cool. But moving on to number 7, we have Bringer of Chaos Ultimate. This song just oozes hype. There's not a single part of the song I dislike. Not to mention, it's the theme of Zeke von Gembu, Bringer of Chaos, but I suppose that went without saying. Whenever I replay Xenoblade 2, this is one of the tracks I look forward to hearing the most. It's just a shame you don't get to hear it after Zeke joins the party. Perhaps if we ever get a Xenoblade 2 Definitive Edition, they could add a jukebox feature. Oh, and I almost forgot the fact that the children of the city asked Best Girl Niall to play it for them on piano. The implications of this just baffle me, because I like to headcanon that at some point, Zeke came up with the song, passed it on to Linka, and intentionally or not, became popular enough throughout the city that it was adapted to be playable on piano. The legacy of the Zekinator was strong indeed. And at number 6, we have Battle in the Skies Above. Xenoblade 2 has so many good battle themes that it became almost impossible to narrow it down to just a couple. I could describe what gave this track the edge over the competition, but I'd say it's better to just play it. I think M-Sword X23 put it best by saying that this track perfectly encapsulates the feeling of urgency you experience during Xenoblade 2's story while nearing the top of the World Tree. But it's strange, because although I read comments saying this song only plays a handful of times, I seem to recall it playing much more, but I believe that just comes down to me doing pretty much everything in Xenoblade 2, so I spent a lot of time in the World Tree. I could also be confusing it with the fact that Monolith Soft reused the track for fighting the gargoyles in Torna, but regardless, this is my favourite Xenoblade 2 battle theme. And at number 5, we have New Battle from Xenoblade 3's Future Redeemed. At first I was worried about recency bias, but I quickly disregarded that thought after thinking about just how much of a standout track this is. Out of all the battle themes across the Xenoblade franchise, this one just works to the point where I wish I knew more about music to accurately describe how I feel. New Battle is Matthew Vandam, and Matthew Vandam is New Battle. I've never encountered a track that so perfectly fits the vibe of a character as a whole, even more so than Bringer of Chaos Ultimate. The energy on display throughout this track is nothing short of fantastic, and I can't resist grooving along the entire time to the point where it's almost wild to say I have songs I prefer even more, which segues us into number 4, Mobius Battle. Now let me just say that the gap between this entry and New Battle is almost non-existent, to the point where honestly the two could have easily swapped places. The only reason Mobius Battle surpassed New Battle was due to a remix I heard on YouTube that perfectly mixed all phases of the song together. Sadly this version got taken down a while ago, along with the other mixes just not quite hitting the same. but if I ever need to get myself out of a funk, Mobius Battle will do the job. Now this is just my interpretation, but I've always liked to imagine that this song isn't just Mobius' theme, but also our theme, and that during the course of a battle, both sides are contesting for who controls the song. From its sinister start, representing the power of Mobius, to its triumphant climax that now delivers the might of Ouroboros. And finally, I also love how the laughing, if you could call it that, plays in a figure of 8 shape that you can only hear with high quality headphones. But with that said, we're nearing the end now, with 3rd place, which is none other than Engage the Enemy from Xenoblade 1. This is just another of those songs that perfectly conveys the weight of whatever scene it plays in. But believe it or not, out of all the event tracks in Xenoblade 1, Engage the Enemy almost lost to a tragic decision. The only reason it won out in the end was similar to my thoughts on the main theme and Yggdrasil, because I can't hear Engage the Enemy without thinking about the line, "You will know the pain and suffering you caused the Emperor and Fiora," which although was said in the scene after, the two are forever linked in my mind. Engage the Enemy was one of those songs where the second you heard those piano keys, you knew things were about to get crazy, which is why it easily placed itself into my top 3. So let's waste no time moving on to my second to last entry, the legendary Drifting Soul from Xenoblade 2. There had to be a ballad at some point on this list, and what may not come as a surprise was that this track was originally part of a 3-way tie, including A Step Away and One Last You. They also originally all competed for my number 1 spot. That was until I changed my mind at the last second. But what gave this song the edge over the other two was the fact that to me, this is Nia's song, and Xenoblade 3 cemented that. Nia was such an interesting character to me, because when I first beat Xenoblade 2, I liked Nia, but she wasn't a favourite of mine. Then as time passed and I had more time to think, Nia steadily climbed up my character rankings until Xenoblade 3 was released, which then placed her in my top 10 Xeno characters of all time. Bizarrely, while making this list I experienced the Mandela effect, because I could have sworn that when Drifting Soul plays during the Spirit Crucible, it was the lyric version, but upon revisiting that scene, it was just the instrumentals, which was rather disorienting. I also love how Ace managed to remix the song for Kaleidoscopic Core. I mean honestly, I wouldn't even know where to begin converting a ballad to a hyped up battle theme, but somehow, Ace pulled it off, and it sounds great. Now before I get to my favourite Xenoblade track, I'd like to list a few honourable mentions. And by a few, I mean Mechanical Rhythm, you all know our names. And now, my number 1 all-time favourite track, as of 2024, is Brilliant Wings from Xenoblade 3. How in the world Kenji Hiramatsu took the already fantastic Time to Fight from Future Connected and adapted it into this jazzed up masterpiece will always leave me speechless. I'll never forget the first time I put Melia on my team and heard this absolute banger. And just like with the Mobius battle theme, this is another one of those songs that cheers me up instantly and has me grooving along in seconds. There's a reason why I've used it in so many of my videos and shorts, and that's because I simply never tire of hearing it, which is why Brilliant Wings is my number 1 favourite Xenoblade track. If you still haven't told me your favourite Xenoblade track, let me know in the comments below. But with that said, smash like, subscribe, and as always,